It seems almost impossible to think that the Lamborghini Huracan has been with us for almost a decade. Through various different versions, this has become Lamborghini's best-selling sports car of all time. There is a successor coming, and this is the final model year that you will be able to order a Huracan. We have been sent a Lamborghini Huracan Tecnica, one of the final ones to review, and today we're going to give it a proper farewell. Let me first start by answering the question, what is a Huracan Tecnica? So the Huracan has had many different versions over the years. You had the Performante, which was a very track-focused version. So basically, as of right now, there are 4 ways to order a Huracan. There is the Evo, which is kind of your base model. That was their big facelift of the Huracan. You could only get that as a Spider at the moment. Then there is the STO. That is the crazy track-focused model with the big wing. Then you have this, the Tecnica. It sits in the middle. The Tecnica is supposed to be more like the STO, but a little bit more road-focused. And then there's the final version, the Huracan Sterrato, which is the crazy off-road version, which is very different than what we're driving here today. This might not be the most aerodynamic version of the Huracan that Lamborghini has ever built, but it looks so sharp here at the front. I'm loving these Y-shaped LED running lights that are really cool. And the Tecnica has this black accent here that makes sort of a triangle underneath the headlight. Not only does it look cool, but it actually channels air in here and just helps keep that front end down. We've got this nice black splitter here, which I'm glad is not finished in carbon fiber because the front end of this car is quite low. Luckily, we do have the optional nose lift to help you get over those tough bumps. Now let's delve into the personalization because there is so much that you can do to customize this car to suit your needs. You can choose from one of over 200 colors. This particular one is called Blue Astreus, which is named after the Greek god of winds. I think that is a fitting name given the aerodynamics of this car and also given that Huracan gets its name from a raging bull. Lamborghini names all of its cars after bulls, or at least most of them, and the Huracan literally means hurricane. So hurricane, Greek gods of winds, it all fits. You can choose from one of 4 different wheel patterns, and then there are various colors within that. You can do black, you can do gold, which I think would look really cool with this blue. This is actually the wheel that they debuted the Tecnica with. You can see we have these hexagon patterns here. Lamborghini is real big into hexagon. It seems to be their favorite shape. And what you'll notice about this wheel is that you actually have center locks here in the middle. They look really cool. They're a little bit of a pain to take off, but you're probably not changing your own tire if you own a Lamborghini. And while I'm down here, I should note that you get Bridgestone Potenza Sport tires, which are very sticky when they are warm, very loose when they are cold. And then here at the back, you'll get this rather medium-sized wing. I did mention that the Tecnica is supposed to bridge the gap between the Evo and the crazy STO, which has a big, massive wing here at the back. This actually has a 35% increase in downforce compared to the Evo, but it is not quite as crazy as the STO. Honestly, this is the Goldilocks version of the Huracan that you're probably looking for. It's not too outrageous for the street, but it would still be really great on a track. And the other thing that you get on the Tecnica that you do not get on the STO is a front trunk. Now, that might be hard to believe, but the STO, being the track monster that it is, has just aero ducts and stuff under here, so you do not get any storage. The Tecnica, on the other hand, while it might not be a very large trunk at just 3.5 cubic feet, you can put maybe a backpack or 2 under there for a weekend trip. These little saddlebags here on the side are basically for fixing a flat tire if you get one, and they even give you these beautiful Lamborghini leather gloves so that you don't get your hands dirty if you did have to do some work on your car. And now let's move on to the inside of the Huracan. This cabin is pretty sparse, but it does have just the right amount of modern tech to be livable. We have this 8.4-inch screen here that you didn't used to get on the Huracan. This all used to just be buttons, and all of your stuff, including CarPlay, would live here on the gauges. So it is nice that you have this, but it is kind of annoying, I'm gonna be honest. Just a simple thing like adjusting the volume you have to do here on the touchscreen. There are some shortcuts to make it a little bit easier, but oh my gosh, my kingdom for a volume knob, my kingdom for a volume button here on the steering wheel when I just want to quickly adjust a radio station. I don't want to have to go into this lower touchscreen. I'm driving a $300,000 car. I don't want to be distracted, and this is a little bit of a distraction. But we do at least have a $6,100 functional pack that includes a few things. You get a little backup camera that's actually going to show up here in your gauges. You get that front end lift system that I mentioned, which is an absolute must-have. And then we do have smartphone integration, so you can get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto right here on this screen. No, that does not come standard in a Huracan. And when talking about the differences between the Tecnica and the STO or the Evo is going to be the seat option. So you can opt for a comfort seat, which is not available on the STO. It is available on the Evo, but we have the upgraded sport seats, which are in the middle. They're $7,600. They're right on the borderline of what I would call comfortable for daily use. They're a little bit stiff. There's not a lot of padding to them, but they are nice and wide, so I do fit in them just fine. These are manual seats, by the way. They don't have a ton of adjustment. They are not power seats because that would add weight. You want to keep the weight as low as possible. And if these aren't quite as aggressive enough as you want, you can also get a track seat that is even more crazy than these ones. And if you're wondering if the Huracan has any weird supercar quirks, there aren't too many, except for the fact that you have these giant paddle shifters here on the column, which is, they're fantastic. I love them. They're nice and metallic. They make a great feel when you click them, but it has meant that Lamborghini had to relocate a lot of things that would be on stocks on the steering column here on the wheel. For example, the turn signal, you just click it to the left, click it to the right, push here to cancel. It does self-cancel itself, which is quite nice. It's very similar to what you would get on a motorcycle. You can push this button to flash your high beams. All of your windshield wiper controls are also here as well as your cruise control. It is a little bit weird, but it does make you feel a little bit like a Formula One driver, controlling various elements of the car straight from the steering wheel. Fitting with the whole theme of customization, you may notice that this entire door card is actually finished in bare carbon fiber. The STO was like that because it's a very track-focused car, but if you want to make your Tecnica a little more street-focused, you can get this in Alcantara, you can get this in leather, whatever you want. But if you do opt for the carbon door, you don't even get a door handle to open up the door. You just get this little red strap, which you pull on. That probably saves $1/4 pound, which the cheeseburger you just ate for lunch probably offsets. And last but not least, before we wrap up on the interior and get this car out on the road, I want to talk to you about the drive mode selector. But Lamborghini doesn't just call it drive modes. They call it, and I'm actually going to grab my script so I don't butcher this in Italian. They call it the Lamborghini Dinamica Veicolo Integrata. There we go. The LDVI. We'll just call it that. It's this little button here on the bottom of the steering wheel. So you have Strada, which is going to be your street mode. You have your sport mode, which is going to make everything a little bit more sporty. And then you have Corsa, which is reserved for the track. We'll talk about those a little bit more as we get the Huracan Tecnica out on the road. At this point, I want to thank you for sitting through all of the boring stuff, because now we're going to talk about the interesting stuff. Here underneath this gorgeous carbon fiber engine cover, which has that beautiful piece of glass so that you can get a peek, is the glorious Lamborghini V10 naturally aspirated engine. This is going to be the last car that has this motor, and boy oh boy, it is a special one. And while we're here at the back, I want to mention a very crucial difference between this car, the Tecnica, and the STO. It's this little piece of glass right here. It might not seem that big, and it's not the best rear visibility, but this is a huge difference over the STO, which has no rear window. You can actually see out of the back of the Tecnica, making it a much more livable street car. All right, now we're out in the Lamborghini Huracan Tecnica. You know what I gotta do, right? I gotta put it in Corsa, which is going to lock us into full manual mode, and I gotta get a launch control. Ready? Ready? Let go. Oh my God. That V10 engine is absolutely monstrous. Just listen to it. And the shifts from the dual clutch transmission. Oh, they're so fast. You could never do that with a manual. Oh, here we come to our first corner. It's so sharp, rear wheel drive. Oh, that just gave me an eargasm. Oh, that is Lamborghini's 5.2 liter V10 engine. It's an evolution of what they debuted many moons ago in the Gallardo, but they've just been working on the formula for years and years and years. It now produces 631 horsepower, the same power that you get in the Lamborghini Huracan STO, the more track-focused version, with 416 pound-feet of torque. And this isn't even the quickest version that they've ever made of the Huracan, because they went rear-wheel drive with it. So it puts the power down really well, but it doesn't put it down the way an all-wheel drive car would. So when we come to a stop, floor it, ready, builds up a little power, then oh, there we're gone. It hooks up super quickly, but not quite as quickly as you would if you had forward-driven wheels. Lamborghini says that this car will hit 62 miles an hour in just 3.2 seconds, but we've already seen independent tests from a variety of outlets that have gotten it well below 3 seconds. You're looking at about 2.8 seconds to 60, and in the quarter mile, this thing will run a 10.2 second run. That is quicker than the Corvette Z06, which is more powerful. And if you ever had a road long enough to use this glorious engine, you'll hit 202. And when you have this much power on tap, you need to be able to bring it to a stop, and Lamborghini thought of that. This car has some of the most magnificent brakes that I have ever used. I'm going to go ahead and put it in sport so that we're back in automatic mode. We've got 6 piston brakes up front and 4 in the back. We're going at a decent clip right now, and when I slam on these brakes, oh my gosh, I can only describe the braking as getting into a car crash. That would be the only way to stop quicker than what I just did. And part of the reason why this car is able to stop that quickly, I mean, it's partially because of the brakes, they're massive, but it's also because this car is really light. Without any fluids in it, it weighs just over 3,000 pounds. That is so feather light for how much power this thing has. It's unbelievable, and it just feels so small. I've driven a Gallardo. It was one of the first exotic cars that I had ever driven. It was one of the early ones, like 04, 05 with all-wheel drive, and it kind of disappointed me. It felt very heavy. The single clutch automatic transmission was very much a problem at that point in time. This is the end of that evolution of a car, and it just feels so much better. The transmission is quicker, the steering is quicker. The steering, by the way, you feel everything transmitted through the road, and this car is pretty small, but it has rear wheel steering, so I can literally whip it around these corners. It moves around. That's the rear wheel drive element. Some poo just came out just there, but that is why this is a more driver-oriented car, this Tecnica, than a base Huracan from years ago, than the Sterrato, than anything else. But because it has that rear-wheel drive, because it has that rear-wheel steering, it moves around. It lets you slide it. It lets you have a little bit more fun that you wouldn't have had in some of the earlier iterations of the Huracan. Do I have any complaints about the driving experience? Well, Lamborghini says that the Tecnica is kind of supposed to be the bridge between the Evo, which is kind of the base model, the street-focused version right now, and the STO, which is the crazy, big-winged, track-focused version. And I'd say it maybe leans a little bit too much towards the STO in terms of the ride comfort. In Strada mode, it's not too bad. It's not going to beat you up too bad as long as you have smooth roads. Where I live in Florida, the roads are pretty good, so it's not beating us up too bad right now. But I'm really wishing that Lamborghini would have put a personalized mode. I want full sport everything. I want sport engine, sport exhaust, sport steering. I want all of that, but I want to leave the suspension in the comfort mode. And I think that would have been a nice thing to add to make this car just that little bit more livable. And the other complaint that I would say is that in automatic, this transmission is not quite as sharp as I hoped it would be. Honestly, in terms of the ride comfort, that's just going to be a pain tolerance for you. Can you live with it? Can you not? I mean, if you can't, maybe the Lamborghini Urus is more your speed. That is a high-riding, much more comfortable Lamborghini. This is meant for the true driving enthusiast. But that being said, I do have one other complaint with this car, and it's not a major one. It's just kind of weird, and I wasn't expecting it. When you're driving around in automatic mode, I really like this 7-speed dual clutch transmission. It actually functions really well as an automatic. The shifts are smooth, it crawls along in traffic just fine. That's a problem that early Lamborghinis with automatic transmissions had. They didn't feel smooth and it made them really tough to drive in traffic. This is great for that. However, this is such a driver-focused car, and the automatic mode just doesn't feel like it fits with the rest of the character of the car. We're driving at like 30 miles an hour right now, and it's going into 7th gear. So when you want some quick power and you're just kind of cruising along, I'm gonna put my foot down, 6th gear. Come on, shift. There we go. I go to kick down, and it's capable of going from 6, boom, right down to 3, but you have to trigger the kick down, which then gives you this kind of aggressive dose of power that you might not be ready for, especially with rear wheel drive, if your tires are cold, if you're having a cold day out. So I want it to be a little smarter, that when I put my foot down, it only goes down from 7 to 6, and it really won't go any further unless I push it that extra little bit on the pedal to kick down. Now you can put it into sport mode. That's going to make it more willing to downshift, and Corsa is going to lock you into manual mode. Again, a weird choice. If I'm driving on a track in Corsa mode, I might not want to shift manually. I might want to let the car do it because I know it can just shift better than I can. So, little weird that they lock you into manual in the most aggressive mode. But other than that, this is a great finale to what has been possibly the most important car that Lamborghini has ever built. The Huracan quickly overtook the Gallardo as its best-selling sports car, and I know the Urus is going to trounce this in sales, but I'm really going to miss this car when it's gone. The replacement is supposed to have a new twin-turbo V8, which I'm sure will be great, but is it really going to sound like this? But I'm gonna miss you, Huracan. I'm gonna miss you. Sadly, that is going to wrap up our time with the 2023 Lamborghini Huracan Tecnica. This is a little bit of a bittersweet farewell for me because this is the first Lamborghini that I've truly got to drive for an extended period of time, but unfortunately it's probably going to be my last Huracan, as orders for these are actually closing this month at the end of 2023. After that, you will not be able to buy one. So with that being said, the pricing on this car, kind of irrelevant. I will tell you about it anyway. Pricing is going to start just under $240,000, so a little more than a Huracan Evo, a little bit less than a Huracan STO. With options, this one sits just over $300,000. It's 301. How very Italian of them. Not 300, 301, which is really not that bad in my personal opinion. In a world full of $3 and even $4 and even $500,000 paint to sample Porsches, $300,000 for this glorious V10 masterpiece really doesn't sound all that bad to me. Is it worth it? I mean, it's a Lamborghini. It's up to you whether or not you want to buy it. I don't know if the Tecnica is the one that I personally would buy. I did have a chance to ride in the Sterrato, and I think that is just the perfect Lamborghini. It's not big and Audi-like like the Urus. It's still a Huracan, but you have that added ground clearance that you can kind of just take it anywhere without worrying. You have the all-wheel drive system, so you'll be able to drive it more, even in inclement weather. This one is just a little bit too raw to take out with your wife or girlfriend and enjoy smoothly without them going in the passenger seat. So maybe it's not the Huracan that I would buy, but it is absolutely glorious, and I'm gonna miss it when it's gone. Thank you so very much for watching. We really hope you've enjoyed this look at the 2023 Lamborghini Huracan Tecnica. For more videos like it, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It really helps us get cars like this filmed and brought to you for your enjoyment. I'll see you next time.